Hello, Tracy. It's Monday. It's Monday, December 1st, which is insane. Um, I am currently in a Navy hotel in Norfolk, Virginia, waiting for Brian to get back from his class today. I find myself in the somewhat fraught position of being a housewife who doesn't have a house to take care of. I don't have a kitchen, so I can't cook things, and there's a maid who takes care of the room. I don't have any cats to play with or feed, and Brian took the car. So, um, I'm a little at a loss right now. So I decided that I would play a little game, a little Google game with you. Um, so what I'm doing is I'm doing all of the question words. I'm doing who, what, when, where, why, and how does the Navy. I'm just typing that into Google, and I'm going to answer the first couple questions that it gives me as best as I can from what I know about the Navy, which I feel like I don't know that much about the Navy. Um, but from conversations that I have with people who are not associated with the Navy, I realize that I actually know a lot more about the Navy than most people do, which is comforting, I guess. So, without further ado, who does the Navy? Who does the Navy fight? The Navy fights anybody who is a threat to United States interests, foreign and domestic. Specifically, the Navy, well, I was about to say specifically the Navy fights people who are in or about the water, but that's not even true. The Navy can fight you no matter where you are, because the Navy is the one who keeps all of the intercontinental ballistic missiles. So, yeah, the Navy fights anyone, anywhere that they feel like. Who does the Navy football team play? I don't know. Presumably the Army and the Marine football teams? No idea. Who does Navy play today? Again, no idea. Alright, the rest of the questions for who does the Navy are all about Old Navy, the store. So, moving on to what does the Navy? What does the Navy do? A lot of things. They sail around in a lot of ships slash submarines and fight people. They also do a lot of research and development of new technologies, and yeah, they just kind of be a Navy. What does the Navy drug test for? The Navy drug tests for a lot of things. Pretty much everything that's illegal in the United States, like to be a drug. And then a couple extras that are not illegal in the United States but are illegal for the Navy. For instance, Brian was just telling me last night that there's this thing called spice that is a synthetic marijuana that's not illegal in the United States because people barely care about regular marijuana anymore. Nobody cares about synthetic marijuana. But it is against Navy rules, so they will check for that and any number of other things. What does the Navy say? The Navy is an impersonal entity, and so it doesn't really have a mouth, doesn't really speak words. If you're asking what their catchphrase is, I think there is one. I don't know what it is. I do know that whenever they like get really excited, they go "hoo-yah," which is exciting. What does the Navy do in war? I already answered that. What does the Navy SEALs do? Is poor grammar. What do the Navy SEALs do? The Navy SEALs fuck shit up. They are some sneaky motherfuckers, and they're serious business is what they do. I don't really know specifics because they're very secret, but you do not mess with Navy SEALs. Like, I've known Navy people for like 3 years now. I'm not sure I've ever laid eyes on a Navy SEAL, is how uncommon they are. They are very rare. They are. They're a rare beast indeed, and they're terrifying. Marines also are terrifying. Not as bad as Navy SEALs, but Marines are frightening. Okay, moving on. Who, what, when? When does the Navy switch to dress blues in 2014? That's a great question. It dress blues as opposed to dress whites. So in the summer, the dress uniform is dress whites, and in the winter the dress uniform is dress blues. And dress blues are actually not blue; they're black, and they're like a blazer and a bow tie, whereas the dress whites are just like a fancy shirt, a really fancy, very fancy shirt. But they're just one layer, so they're not as hot. And when you switch from the whites to the blues is actually determined geographically. So in a tropical climate, you wear the whites year round, and in like presumably in an Arctic climate, you would wear the blues year round. No, did I say okay? In tropics, you wear the whites year round. In the Arctic, you would wear the blues year round, and everywhere else is just like on a gradient. So in Florida, we didn't switch to the blues until like October, whereas in like New York, they switched to the blues in September. So it depends on where you are, what the climate is, and your command. So it's up to the guy who's in charge of your base who decides when you switch to your blues. Okay, when does the Navy get paid? The Navy is an impersonal entity and does not really get paid for things in the same way that people get paid, but sailors get paid on the 1st and 15th of every month is the rule. Actually, they usually get paid a couple days early, which is nice. When does the Navy switch to dress blues? Already answered that. When does the Navy wear dress blues? Already answered that. When does the Navy drug test? The Navy gives drug tests to sailors randomly, whenever, a couple times a year. They also give drug tests after every holiday, every long weekend, and every time you take leave and come back. Because they know that that's when you're going to want to, chill out and do drugs. If you do drugs, is while you're on vacation. But they always check when you come back from vacation. Moving on. Where does the Navy train? The Navy trains freaking everywhere. The Navy trains at all naval bases. The Navy trains in the ocean. The Navy trains in like specific secret training camps all over the place. The Navy trains wherever they want, basically. Where does the Navy have basic training is a different question. Basic training for the Navy is, I think it's in like Michigan, on the Great Lakes, on Lake Michigan. I know because that's where Brian's cheating ex-girlfriend was at basic training when she cheated on him. So that's why I know about that. Drama. Where does the Navy get stationed? Again, frickin' everywhere. Basically, anywhere that has a coast, the Navy has a base on that coast, and sailors can get stationed there. There are... there are at least a dozen Navy bases in the United States on either coast and in Hawaii and Alaska. And there are 2 in Japan. There's 1 at least in Spain. They're all over Central and South America. a couple in Africa. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but there's tons. Where does the Navy travel to? The Navy travels to even more places than they get stationed. The Navy travels literally anywhere that isn't landlocked, and even some places that are landlocked because the Navy has helicopters. Navy goes anywhere. Anywhere. All the time. Where does the Navy football team come from? I have no idea. Probably the Naval Academy, if I had to guess, seeing as like a lot of football teams seem to come from schools. That's my guess. Who would win where? Why does the Navy have planes? That's a great question. The answer is funny, and what it is that before, when planes were first invented, there was no such thing as an air force. Air forces didn't exist. And the idea of using planes as weapons was not feasible yet because they were slow, they couldn't go very far, they were low. So the Navy, since a plane is basically just a ship that flies, the Navy took the planes because, like, they're the ship people. So the Navy took all the planes, they used them for transportation and things, and then once planes started getting fancier and faster and more feasible to use as weapons, the government was like, you know what, we should really have a separate branch dedicated to the fighter planes. So the Navy does not have weaponized planes. The Navy has transport planes. So they have cargo planes and they have like helicopters that they use to like transport Marines and Navy SEALs and things. The Navy actually has more planes and more pilots than the Air Force does, but none of them are weaponized planes. They're just cargo planes. So yeah, that was a cool question. I wondered too, but that's how it goes. Why does the Navy wear blue camo? Because of the pun, like the navy blue. They actually don't wear the camo while they're at sea. While they're at sea, they wear these goofy coveralls. So they only wear camo when they're working on land. But they have blue camo because all the other colors of camo were already taken, I guess. It seemed to make sense. Like, it is not meant to camouflage them the way Army camouflage is meant to camouflage the Army. It's not. It's just they had to have an outfit. It had to be camouflage because everybody has to have camouflage, and they picked blue. Why does the Navy call the bathroom the head? I have no idea. I presume it's just an old nautical term that never got phased out. There are a lot of those. Why does the Navy have so many uniforms? Why indeed? I find this really irritating because every time I see somebody in a Navy uniform, this has gotten less bad as time has gone on, but every time I see somebody in a Navy uniform, I assume it's Brian because Brian is the one I see in Navy uniforms all the time. So I'll see somebody, I'll be like, oh, it's Brian! And it won't be Brian because they all wear the same outfit. Except they don't actually all wear the same outfit. There are dozens and dozens of different Navy uniforms, and yet they are not distinctive enough that I can pick my husband out of a crowd of people who are dressed just like him. So this is really irritating for me. But basically what it is that uniforms are not just meant to clothe you. Otherwise you could just wear clothes. Uniforms are a method of communication. They're a language, essentially. And different uniform items communicate different things, and the language is just really complicated. And if you're educated, you can read the uniforms like a book. So Brian can look at somebody in a different uniform and know, like, what specialty he is, what's his rank, where he's from, what his job is. Um, so Brian knows specifically, like, this uniform means this uniform means this uniform means this. I just know that they all mean different things. Um, why does the Navy have a goat? I don't know. Presumably because it's the Navy and they can do what they want. Who, what, when, where, why, how? How does the Navy, I think this is the last one. How does the Navy work? What do you mean, how does the Navy work? They, like, they sign you up on a contract and then they do whatever they want with you. They send you to places, they make you press buttons. Those buttons often cause things to explode. Like, it's not complicated. How does the Navy drug test? Pee in a cup. And they test the pee for drugs. How does the Navy Reserve work? Once you get out of the Navy, or if you're just in the reserves, every month you go training for a weekend, and if they ever need to call up the reserves, you go to war. How does the Navy pay you? With money. Uh, they have a payroll just like every other company. Brian gets it direct deposited to his checking account. So, how does the Navy measure body fat? The Navy doesn't measure body fat at all. The Navy just has a PRT, which is like a physical readiness training, I think. I think that's what it stands for. So every 3 months, they have a fitness test, and everybody has to take it. The captain has to take it. The enlisted kids have to take it. Everybody has to take this fitness test. And if you fail 3 times in a row, you get kicked out of the Navy. And that is how the Navy measures physical fitness. It's not about how fat you are. It's just whether you or not you can pass this test. So yeah, that has been fun. That has made me feel, that has confirmed that I feel like I know more about the Navy than, the average person on Google does. So that's nice. And I hope you enjoyed it / found it informative. It was super fun to hang out with you and your baby over the weekend. I was really proud of Brian for kind of interacting with him a little bit. You weren't there when they actually started to hang out and bond a little bit, but it happened, and it was adorable. And I'm really proud of him because he doesn't have a lot of experience with babies, and he finds them a little intimidating, which is fair. They are a little intimidating. But he's going to have to figure it out one of these days. So, anyway, super fun hanging out with you and your baby. Hoped you enjoyed your pie and jam and things, and I'll see you in a little while.